Story 1. In 7th grade, we learned about cystic fibrosis in science class. I decided that I wanted to get a doctor of philosophy and work in human genetics to cure disease. Now, I have a doctor of philosophy and work on genetically modified T cells to cure cancer. Story 2. As a child, I wanted to be an astronaut and explore the universe. Later, I noticed I wasn't smart or talented enough, so I did what I could, which is neurosurgery. Story 3. I used to want to be a garbage man. Riding on the back of the truck as it cruised down the street looked absolutely awesome. Then I found out how physically demanding it is, so now I am a forensic scientist. Close enough, right? Story 4. I wanted to be an astronomer after watching Carl Sagan's Cosmos as a kid. My life has been following that track since, and now I am a few months from submitting my Doctor of Philosophy thesis in astronomy. Story 5. I wanted to be an architect. Or at least, that's the answer I was taught to give because I was told justice is a silly story for kids, and helping people is stupid. As an adult, I decided to be realistic and went to university for graphic design, aiming to work in technology. While in university, I realized I leaned pretty hard towards urban planning, so I was in the process of getting into graduate school for a master's in architecture. Then life happened, and I became a full-time human rights activist. I do justice and I help people, or at least try. Story 6. I always wanted to be a mom when I was a child, from seeing my mom take care of me and my siblings, plus the dozens of dolls I had. In my 5th grade yearbook, I put mommy as what I want to be when I grow up. Well, I'm happy to say I did become a mom, and it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Story 7. I wanted to be a rocket scientist and open up a private space program, similar to what billionaires are doing now. Now I'm studying to be a history teacher. I am very happy with my switch, I hope. Story 8. I wanted to be a Red Bull athlete in snowboarding or skydiving. Now I work in sales, but I still skydive and snowboard, not for Red Bull but for myself. Story 9. I wanted to be Wonder Woman but ended up teaching undergraduates. I still have a few seemingly superpowers, but they are mostly confined to helping middle-aged women with dyslexia. Story 10. Dream jobs were paleontology and anything in the medical field. Being in the Marines for a decade and a couple of times in combat gave me irreversible brain damage, so the future doctor in me was out of the picture. I tried going to college after the military for anthropology but found out I couldn't retain information as well as I thought. I started traveling to find a purpose, fell in love with someone, and made a small family. Story 11. Wanted to be a writer, but quickly discovered that I am not talented enough. Getting published is an absolute slog. See, I like steady, predictable income too much. So I ended up figuring out how to make writing and the ability to read lots of boring text every day into a career, and became a technical writer. Story 12. Child. Making comic books. Adult. Making comic books. I will say that it transitioned from a passion into a job. If I had to do it all over again, I would prioritize job stability, pay, benefits, and retirement and pursue my passions in my free time. Story 13. Surgeon. I got blown up and now I have seizures. I said forget it and took the first available healthcare course, radiologic technologist. I don't regret a single second. Story 14. Dream number 1. To fly. Dream number 2. Take pictures. Result. Became a helicopter flight engineer, saw the world, no regrets. This led to a job in the aviation aspect of the defense industry. It is soul-crushing. Wish I was still flying. Also picked up a camera again about 8 years ago to offset the soul-crushing aspect of the other job. I am now a published landscape photographer. Story 15. I told my middle school, then high school guidance counselors that I wanted to play video games for a living in the mid-2000s. I was told repeatedly, and with much sneering and smugness, that video games aren't a career. My Twitch and YouTube channels started taking off, and it really feels like the job I always wanted is a real possibility. Story 16. I wanted to be a scientist. I tried the research world and hated it, so now I work as a medical laboratory technician and also studied forensic research. Close enough, I guess. Story 17. None. Well, I should say there are too many because I liked pretty much everything then, and when people asked me that when I was a kid, the answer always changed. Now I just work a factory job with no hopes. Story 18. As a child, I wanted to be an astrophysicist or an archaeologist. Now, I'm a depressed 30-something-year-old who suffers from severe agoraphobia, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a myriad of physical health issues. I think about it a lot. Story 19. Always wanted to be an archaeologist. Initially, it was because of Indiana Jones, but as I matured, I also became a bit of a history enthusiast, so I still liked it. I ended up in finance because apparently, it's hard to pay the bills as an archaeologist considering how much education is required. Story 20. In Europe, before rail automation, there was a job similar to a traffic warden who would close the road when a train was approaching on the rails. These individuals would station themselves, or sometimes even live, in a building where the road crossed the rail and would stop the traffic before the train passed. Now, in most parts, this role is taken over by automation. As a kid, I even had my favorite crossing in the middle of the woods, which looked especially cozy in winter. Now, I work in information technology, and who knows, maybe automation will take my current job as it took the one of my childhood dreams. Story 21. Paleontologist when I was around 7, then found out how much education costs were. Settled on primary school teacher when choosing my options. Muddled through early adulthood. Didn't go to university due to financial woes. Fell into IT through a friend and worked in first line for a while. Through therapy, I thought better of my skills and got a new job with an inbuilt apprenticeship. I now work in cybersecurity. The time between bettering myself and now has been a scant 6 years, but I've come along in leaps and bounds. Story 22. I wanted to be a chef like a Michelin star chef. Today, I can pick random items out of the kitchen and make a semi-gourmet meal, and I can fry exceptionally well. My wife and I are looking into buying a small coffee shop. Story 23. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I think it was more that I wanted to work with and help kids. I'm a school psychologist and behavior analyst working with special education youth and youth with autism spectrum disorder. Not quite a pediatrician, but in the ballpark of what little me wanted to do. Story 24. Firefighter or flight nurse. I've been a firefighter for 12 years and just received my Bachelor of Science in Nursing, registered nurse license to work toward riding around in helicopters intubating everyone. Story 25. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a young kid. Then I hit puberty and grew to be 6 feet, and I'm colorblind. It was never a possibility. Now I work at a civil engineering company. Some things can be really boring, like manual counts, but for the most part, I enjoy it. There is a special feeling you get when you see the result of a project you worked on. For instance, a mid-block crossing project, and you finally see whatever was decided, like a crosswalk that makes it safer for pedestrians to cross. Story 26. Computer programmer, video game developer, scientist, astronaut. I am an information technology guy with a 30-year career so far. I was a system administrator and now I am a security engineer. I am working on a few games using Unreal Engine and an old homebrew 6502 base system. I love science and enjoy reading more about everything all the time. I want to get my private pilot license, but going to space is not going to happen until I am dead. So I will try to get as close as I can. Story 27. I wanted to be a nurse. The math was difficult for me. I ended up in human services management. I worked with seniors, teens, homeless pregnant women, and mentally ill homeless individuals, and I represented people in Social Security hearings. I am now retired. It was a remarkable 30 years. Story 28. I wanted to be a marine biologist. My mom shut that dream down quickly, along with all other options I thought of, and belittled me for it. I'm currently unemployed. Story 29. As a child, I wanted to be a pilot. Due to medical reasons, I couldn't do that, at least not commercially, so I now do aerial surveying, which basically gives me a pilot lifestyle of traveling without having to fly the planes. Story 30. My dream job was to be a vlogger because imagine traveling to places and eating your favorite food while getting paid at the same time. However, right now I'm an intern somewhere. One day I'll vlog, just not right now. Story 31. software developer or mechanical engineer. Then realized how much I hated high levels of math like calculus, and I'm an electrician now, and I'm happier than I would have ever been as a software developer or engineer. Story 32. When I was in primary school, I would always tell my teachers that I wanted to become a journalist when I grew up. To this day, at 23 years old, I still have this dream. However, I am a graphic designer now. Story 33. In the 1980s and 1990s, I loved reading comics and drew so many comics that my sketchbooks were full of them. I went to an art school for high school and proceeded to go to college for a Bachelor of Science in Fine Art. While in college, I got a job in aviation manufacturing that paid for my college tuition. I started at the bottom and then worked my way up. I am now a quality engineer and do art for fun. Story 34. I never had a dream job. I always wondered what it would feel like to have a plan and a goal to aim for. I have a degree now but still can't find a job. Everything I did in the past 8 years after graduation was depressing as hell. I don't know how long I'll be able to continue. Story 35. I really wanted to be a sociology professor. I first became a chef, but the hours were long. I went back to school and got a Doctor of Philosophy degree, and I became a physics professor, then went back and got a sociology Doctor of Philosophy degree, and now I have a cross appointment. Story 36. I always wanted to be a writer, and I became that. I have written 3 novels, still in early drafts, plus a collection of flash fiction. I have hosted creative writing classes, and I have shared my work on podcasts, magazines, and online. But unfortunately, none of that pays well. So right now, I am working in a store, saving up so that I can pursue my dream full-time. Story 37. Supreme leader of the Middle East united by blood and mass executions. I used to watch a lot of Hitler, thinking he was the good guy, and I was 11 or even younger, so meh. Story 38. I wanted to be a pilot. Flight school for a commercial license was way too expensive, and minor hearing damage meant I did not pass the medical for military flight school. I ended up becoming an aeronautical engineer instead, though I currently do not work in the aeronautical industry. Having talked to some airline pilots, I think I ended up in the better position for me personally. The good parts of being a pilot still sound fantastic, but for me they do not outweigh the negatives. Story 39. Wanted to be a life scientist and started working toward that goal as a young teenager with science fairs, lab experience, and so on. Currently in the final year of my Doctor of Philosophy and facing the reality that somewhere along the way my dream became my obligation, and I'm in a spot where I don't love the work anymore. I'm good at it and I can be paid for it, so I'll probably stick to it, but it is sad to lose the dream. Story 40. I wanted to be a poet. I ended up getting my master's in library and information science, but was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer in my last semester. I finished my degree and now work as a library marketer. Story 41. I wanted to be a stuntman and then a professional rugby player. Injuries and lack of motivation stopped those dreams. Now I run a small family business that I have taken over from my dad. Story 42. I wanted to be a tutor who owns a preschool, taking care of kids and educating the young. I am now an accountant who gets easily annoyed by crying children. What happened? Story 43. Wanted to be a pathologist. I watched a lot of Silent Witness with my grandmother when I was a kid. Now, I am the middlewoman between clients and engineers. Basically, I schedule work for people. Fun. Story 44. When I was little, I wanted to either be a history teacher or a lawyer for the mob. Now, I own an automotive repair shop. There's no way I would ever consider being a teacher in today's world. And the other is kind of self-explanatory. Story 45. I wanted to design and build theme parks. I would even build things in my cousin's backyard because his dad was a construction laborer and had a ton of random material. I babysat a lot and would build things indoors as well. After college, I did teaching along with political and nonprofit work. Now I work in construction and real estate. It's honestly awesome because I'm building a business and hopefully one day soon we can bid on facilities at a theme park. Story 46. As a child, I wanted to be an anthropological linguist studying how language evolved and changed. Now I am an emergency room counselor, using language to help people in the worst of emergencies. Story 47. I wanted to be an actor or a writer. Now I work as a writer and editor, but I'm secretly an actor because I'm performing all the time. People just don't realize it. Story 48. I wanted to be an archaeologist. Somehow I have found myself a job nowadays as a traveling vendor for a National Oddities Expo circuit, selling dead specimens in jars and bizarre antiques. Story 49. As a child, I wanted to be a game designer, one like Kojima, where I had the power to bring my ideas to life. As an adult who's over 30, I'm a security guard. Story 50. I wanted desperately to be a cowgirl. There's even a picture I drew in kindergarten when we were assigned to draw ourselves in our future career. I am now a title insurance agent. Reality is depressing. Story 51. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a geologist. I became a graphic designer rather by accident and do not much care for it, but do not have a lot of other options. I still think I would have been happier as a geologist. Story 52. Author or dolphin trainer. Right now, I am in graduate school writing research about safe mobility. Not dolphins, but all my work says you can teach old dogs, Americans over 65 at risk of injury from falling, new tricks. Story 53. I wanted to be a Disney animator. I took a drafting class in high school and went on to do technical illustration. I love it. It's not Disney, but I'm still a professional artist, and I can listen to audiobooks all day if I want. Story 54. Believe it or not, I am doing exactly what I wanted to do when I was a child. It's harder than I thought it would be, but overall very rewarding. I went through a phase where I wanted to be a pilot, but I am over it.